Hi, everybody. It's Kel here, the genealogy investigator. I have another installment for you guys. I think you'll really enjoy this one. This one is about Civil War genealogy and some great research tips. So the Civil War produced a huge amount of documentation with over 3.5 million men and a few hundred women, can't forget our women, fighting for both the Union and the Confederacy. But because military records do not fit familiar patterns of most genealogical research that you're going to conduct as a genealogist, like those vital records, passenger lists, and so on, these records can really be overwhelming for first-time researchers. But by understanding a few key facts and having some really great resources in your toolbox, you can start with a wealth of information about your Civil War ancestor before you even start digging. So a great thing to look into is that compiled military service records. It's the CMSR. Every soldier has a CMSR for each of the regiments in which he served. If your ancestor was in more than one regiment, then you should look for all of his CMSRs. The CMSR envelope will contain the original muster rolls, various cards that are typically recording, whether that soldier was present and at what time period he was present, his enlistment and discharge information, and then any wounds that he received during service or hospitalizations. So it is a wealth of knowledge. Draft records are also a great place. They're going to include genealogical data, even if your ancestor never actually served. So there are two lists. The consolidated lists are going to show each man's name, his residence at time of enlistment, his age, marital status, occupation, place of birth, and any previous military service that he might have. And then there's the descriptive roles, and they're going to include that physical description, his place of birth, and whether he enlisted. Both of these listings, they're going to be organized by state and then congressional district and then surname, just so when you are searching, you know how to search that out. Census records are also great. They can sometimes hold clues about Civil War service. In the 1890 census, they're going to include a special enumeration of Union veterans and their widows. So most of that census was lost due to a fire, though, unfortunately. But those special schedules did survive for states that are alphabetical from Kentucky through Wyoming. So anything beyond that, though, they were lost in that fire. Pension records are also a really great place to look. If your ancestor fought for the Union, it's likely he, his widow, and his minor children later would have applied for a pension. These pension files can usually contain some really great golden nuggets of information about a soldier's service, sometimes more than even the CMSR does, which could include like medical history, if he lived for a number of years after the war. Genealogists can even find information about the family. Widows would have to supply evidence of marriage, and applications on behalf of a minor child would have to prove birth and the soldier's marriage as well. So just some key things to look into. Cemetery records. It doesn't matter if a Civil War veteran passed on during the war or years later. Cemetery records will hold some great clues about your ancestors. If you think your Civil War ancestors buried in a government cemetery, you can start your search with the Department of Veteran Affairs National Gravesite Locator. I'll put a link below. This site would index burial locations of the veterans and their families in the VA National Cemeteries, state veteran cemeteries, and other military and Department of Interior cemeteries. So it's a great resource to check into. Another clue would be to look at photos and maps. Images can really bring your ancestor alive. I see this all the time, and I truly do mean it. Photographers such as Matthew Brady, I don't know if you've heard of him before, but he made Civil War battle the first military conflict that was actually captured in pictures. So definitely Google some of his work, Matthew Brady. He showcased the uniforms, camp life, weaponry, and even the battlefield aftermath in his photography, which is really great because during that time, photography wasn't really a big thing, and to have that evidence, it really made his name stand out. And it kind of brings that Civil War period to life. Maps are going to allow you to trace the movements and the battlefield positions of your soldiers' unit, so they can be great resources. And then I've talked about this a little bit on my social media, but the Grand Army of the Republic Records, which is the GAR, once the war ended, many of the Union veterans would join organizations such as the GAR. If you follow the Time Travel in Toledo, Ohio with me, which is on my social media account and my website, then you know that I have several images of those Union veterans who pose for photos representing the GAR. By the 1890s, some 40% of Union veterans were GAR members. So the records of local GAR posts, which would include the rosters, meeting minutes, they can really provide great genealogical information about its members, that can even provide further clues to that ancestor's life. So they can be a great resource, just kind of thinking outside of the box a little bit. And then the regiment history. So once you've researched your ancestors' military records and you're learning even more about his Civil War experiences, you can start to look into the regiment and the company. So for a quick regimental history, which would include like the major battles, you can check out, it's the CWSS regiment link, and I'll put the link below. But Civil War buffs and soldier descendants, they have written legions of printed and online histories that are accessible to view through this link. And it is a great resource because it really just, it gets you in tune with what your ancestor experienced during the Civil War. So I am going to kind of flip over here. I made a really cool timeline that I just want to share. So I am going to share my screen now. And this is just my Civil War timeline that I made. November 6, 1860, Abraham Lincoln is elected president. December 20th of that same year, South Carolina voted to secede. Then we move into January and February. It should be 61. I apologize. That's my mistake. Mississippi, Florida, Alabama, Georgia, Louisiana, and Texas secede. And then we go to February 9th. Jefferson Davis is elected president of the Confederacy. This just kind of brings that whole Civil War period to life because it did span from 1860 to 1863. The Southern troops fired upon Fort Sumter, April 12th, 1861. Lincoln calls for 75,000 volunteers for the Federal Army, April 15th, 1861. Lincoln proclaims blockade of Southern ports, April 19th, 1861. It just kind of brings it to life, where I'm going to go ahead and flip over to the next page. The first Battle of Bull Run is fought in Virginia, July 21st, 1861. 1862, the CSS Virginia and the USS Monitor fight at Hampton Roads. The Union wins the Battle of Shiloh, April 6th and 7th of 1862. The Union Admiral David Farragut captures New Orleans, April 25th, 1862. The second battle, Bull Run, happens. It results in 22,000 casualties, August 28th through the 30th of 1862. The Battle of Antietam is the first major battle on Union soil on September 17th, 1862. Then the Union suffers a devastating loss at Fredericksburg, Virginia, December 11th through the 15th of 1862. A great date. I know I had to share this with my own kids. Emancipation Proclamation, free slaves in Confederate territory, January 1st of 1863. It's always great to, It's always great to share this history knowledge with my kids, because I do notice that there is kind of a lag in what they're learning in school compared to kind of like the real world. I don't want to be like that, but you know, kind of like the real world history that was happening. A little bit of a disconnect there. And then we move into April 30th through May 6th of 1863, the death of General Thomas Johnson, who was Stonewall Jackson, or Thomas Jonathan Stonewall Jackson, tempers the Southern victory at Chancellorsville. The Battle of Gettysburg happened July 1st through the 3rd, 1863. It is the war's deadly or bloodiest battle. I'm sorry, that is a graphic picture too, so I do apologize, but I wanted to bring it all home. The siege of Vicksburg, Mississippi ends the city's surrender July 4th, 1863. Irish workers initiate draft riots in New York City, July 13th through the 16th, 1863. We move into 1864. Confederate submarine H.L. Hunley sinks after attacking the USS Housatonic, February 17th, 1864. Then we have the first Union prisoners arriving at Andersonville Prison, Georgia on February 25th, 1864. And I did put this one in because I'm going to share with you guys, we recently went to Johnson's Island, which is here in Sandusky, Ohio, not far from where we live. And it was basically a prison camp for Confederate soldiers. This is kind of the other side. This is the Union prison. So I just kind of wanted to make a little bit of a segue. And then General Ulysses S. Grant becomes the commander of the Union Army, March 9th, 1864. And then we see more than 7,000 men killed in 20 minutes at the Battle of Cold Harbor in Virginia, May 31st through June 12th, 1864. That's a lot to take in. And then we're kind of running it out here. Union troops occupy Atlanta, September 2nd, 1864. General Lee evacuates the Confederate capital in Richmond, Virginia in 1865. General Lee surrenders at Appomattox Courthouse in Virginia, April 9th, 1865. Sorry, my fault. I got my dates mixed up again. John Wilkes Booth assassinates Abraham Lincoln at Ford Theater in Washington, D.C. This is April 14th, 1865. So my date is incorrect. I apologize. The Union Army captures Jefferson Davis in Irwin, Georgia, May 10th, 1865. So like I had mentioned, in July of this year, my kids and I visited Johnson Island, located in Sandusky, Ohio. The site was a depot for the confinement of Confederate prisoners of war during the Civil War. We walked around the Confederate cemetery. It contains the remains of more than 200 soldiers and sailors who died while imprisoned on the island. Johnson Island served as prison from 1862 to 1865. Each day, the prisoners would begin with an early morning formation roll call, regardless of the weather. An evening roll call, the same version, would happen at the end of the day. Between the roll calls and in the evening, the prisoners were free to move within the stockade and do whatever they pleased. They did have a few restrictions. One of the biggest things was the boredom, as you can imagine. But, you know, they had a baseball team that they formed. They had a theatrical group that they created. They did a lot of reading and just a bunch of different things. I found like an account for a poker game that they took. They would use the Confederate currency that was worthless at the time. So that's just kind of neat. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing this, and I'm going to jump over here and show you guys this. This is just a little TikTok video that we did from our trip. So, hoping it's not going to play. Let me start it over. Oh, all these technical difficulties. It's all right. You guys get to see that this is real life. Year was 1904. 39 years after. So it was a really nice visit. You have to cross a little toll bridge. You have to pay $1 to go over it. And it was good for my own kids to see that. Like, we walked up and down and paid our respects, you know, and looked at all the names. I think we looked at every single name on every single headstone. And we read everything and just kind of took it all in. And, you know, it's sacred ground and times were very different. And it's important to kind of make sure that my kids understand that and they know that, you know, this happened. This is a part of our history. We can't erase it. We have to learn from it. And, you know, the times were different, but it's also produced a lesson in the Civil War. My youngest daughter loves Abraham Lincoln. She learned about him, I think, in third grade, and like she just loves Abraham Lincoln. Every time something's on about Abraham Lincoln, she's got to stop and watch it, and she's been like that since she's been in third grade. So you know, it's important that you know we noted when the Emancipation Proclamation took place and what it stood for, and it's just been a really, really good thing. So for me to be able to use that and use what my kids are learning and segue that into my business has been like really awesome. I love history. So for me to be able to, you know, make it all come full circle, it's really, really important. So I will go ahead and I'll start wrapping up. I appreciate you guys all stepping on. I apologize for my little ears here and there, but I am human, so it's all right. But if you would rather read, please feel free to sign up for my weekly newsletter subscription delivered right to your email box. I'll put the link below. The Genealogy Academy, which is my full comprehensive 6-week self-paced course, is open. I do have seats available. You can learn how to do what I do as a professional genealogist. My service-based business provides personalized research, family trees, pedigree charts, and then DNA consulting. So, you know, if you're interested in the course, I'll put the link below. If you're interested in my services, please feel free to email me. I'm more than happy to jump on and talk about, you know, what you're looking for and what I can help you find. I do provide a 1-hour free, no obligation Zoom call, just so we can kind of hash out what you're looking for, what I'm able to do, and see if we're a good match for one another. So that's always an option. And of course, my blog posts are all going to be in the link provided below. So feel free to peruse that. If you have any tips or tricks, I'm always willing to learn. So feel free to share. And until next time, have a great day.